Hey guys, it's Garrett from Dr. Muscle and back today with another app review. Today we're going to look at the new app RPHypertrophy from Renaissance Periodization. Renaissance Periodization is a fairly popular company in the weightlifting world. It was funded by Nick Shaw. However, it's more famous for its, I believe his title is Chief Sports Scientist, Dr. Mike Israeltel. Sorry if I mispronounced that. They initially gained popularity with their diet app, but they also produce a lot of fitness material. The majority of it is more in the bodybuilding world and physique and stuff like that, but they're fairly popular. Dr. Mike has a big following on his social accounts. He's a very charismatic guy, and they generally have a very popular reputation. And so when they announced they were coming out with their hypertrophy app, there was a lot of buzz, a lot of people excited to see what it is, and I myself was curious, and so I downloaded it, tried it out, and this is going to be my thoughts. So right off the bat, you need to know this isn't technically, it's not an app. You must use it on a web-based interface, so you have to be online to use it. Right off the bat, that might turn a lot of people off. Know that when I say app, I'm not really referring to an actual phone app. And before we go any further, due to the nature of this app and my critique, I'm going to break this up into two critiques. The first critique is going to be on the actual functional use from a user's point of view, ease of use, stuff like that. And then the second review is going to be based on their actual methodology, because their methodology is really the selling point for this app. Bears a lot of weight in whether or not this app is good. Another thing you need to know right off the bat is this app does not provide any type of personalization. It offers really minimal guidance. What it ultimately is it helps you set up your program in a mesocycle based off their methodology, and then it helps you work through that. So if you download this thing, it's going to give you a whole program. You will be sadly mistaken. It does advertise 28 presets, but what those presets are preset templates that you can fill out on your own. So those aren't 28 pre-programmed that you can choose from. It's 28 templates that you can choose to fill out with your own information. That's going to throw a lot of people off, especially beginners and even intermediate. If you need any help with programming and what exercises to do and so on and so forth, this is not going to be the app for you. I do want to mention, so when you go to your template, it uses drop-down menus to choose what exercises you do, and the exercises they have are plentiful. Renaissance Periodization, they know what they're doing. So no, I don't really see a problem in finding your exercise. And they do have an autofill option, and I was curious how that would play out. And so I used it multiple times, and I saw a lot of issues with autofill. Things like repeating exercises, back to back doing the same exercise, starting off first exercise with a smaller isolation, and at the same time, every time I clicked it, it was a different series of exercises. And so that makes me think that's literally just completely random. Another smaller issue, but still an issue, is that it doesn't offer any type of widgets. Right? A lot of apps will have even stuff like timers. None of that. And what I was really surprised is that it doesn't even prescribe rest time for your recovery. Between sets. It merely has you doing your sets and then you log in what you do, but that's it. That's really all it does. Another issue is this going to cut off a lot of people is this is not appropriate for someone who does a lot of calisthenics or a home workout. This is even said by RP. So if you're a calisthenics person or working at home, this is not for you. Then the last issue I want to touch on is that due to the way it's set up is you need to have intermediate knowledge of programming to use this app. Again, there's very little guidance. If you've never heard of a mesocycle, you don't need this app. This app is not for beginners. So if you're a beginner or intermediate or just anyone who wants more guidance with an app, this is not for you. Like I said, this is more like a template and it helps you walk through your current program. So now we're going to get into more of the methodology that RP app uses. So before I get into the details, this overview, my summary of the app is I feel as this is just too complicated. That's a combination of their methodology. You need to learn a whole new different terminology like MEV, MRV, and then the actual how they run their program. There different indicators to add volume and so far. Different indicators to add volume, I think is overcomplicating the process. RP uses a pretty unique methodology. They get into friendly debates with other exercise scientists, and it basically centers around their use of progressive overload and then different indicators they use to determine how much more volume you need to do in your program. So compared to other programs that will use load, to implement progressive overload, load is pretty much the most common. You add weight. RPHypertrophy chooses to instead add sets. And so if you're pump or you don't feel like you got a good enough workout, you're gonna add more sets to your total work volume. And yeah, that does work. When you implement progressive overload, you can basically increase load, increase reps, increase sets, or you can even decrease rest period. That would increase the intensity. So the issue of increasing set isn't the worst. However, the issue is when you negate increasing the load or using some of your other choices to only increase your weekly sets. It's a common argument against them is you could eventually cause too much volume. If you're doing 5 or 6 sets for a single exercise, and if you do that for 2, 3, 4 exercises, you can see you're doing a lot of volume. And the problem is there's a threshold to the amount of volume your body needs, or that your body can use. You're going to have a minimal threshold where you need to get so much, and then you're going to have a maximal threshold where going over that is just be junk volume. So when you concentrate on just increasing sets, you're really kind of risking of maybe doing too much volume. And one other aspect of only using sets is you're going to mitigate your strength gains. To increase strength, you need to increase your load. You can't really increase your strength that much just by increasing your total volume. I mean, it'll have some effect. And he does say sometimes that you'll increase your load a little bit to keep your reps within a certain range, but it's not very much. Now, that said, this is a bodybuilding app, and it's not supposed to be for strength, but in my opinion, if you can get volume and increase your strength, I would much rather do that. But it's something to keep in mind. Another issue is you're just going to increase the time you're inside the gym. Again, if you increase every exercise 2 sets, you have an exercise with 7 exercises, that's 14 extra sets that you're doing in a single session. You're going to be there, that's another 20 minutes or so that you're going to be in the gym. Further, if you're doing 4 or 5 sets and you're working the 8-12 rep range and you're training to failure, you should easily be able to increase the load and still get a good workout with just the 3 sets. I mean, 3 sets is kind of your norm. So again, this is a big talking point that a lot of people bring up with them. Dr. Eric Helms, he had a big, I think they had a 2-hour podcast just on this subject. And so it's a very nuanced subject. There's no way I'm going to cover it all. But if you want to know more, I would suggest you go look that up on YouTube, Eric Helms, RPHypertrophy app. So that being said, my issue isn't so much with increasing volume. I think you're cutting yourself short, but it's not horrible. It's going to work. My issue is more with how they indicate if you should increase sets and how much sets you should increase by. Basically use different indicators like your pump, what they call disruption, which is really just fatigue, things like drop in muscle strength, joint pain, and performance. So there's 4 different indicators that you judge your session to see if you should do more volume within the session, if you should do more volume in your next session, so on and so forth. And again, I believe this is overly complex. I don't believe that you need this many indicators to know how much volume to increase your load. I want to pay attention to one, cell swelling. The pump. The pump, everyone knows the pump. Your muscle grows during your workout, and it's hard and it's bigger. And so what Dr. Mike does, he relates that to cell swelling. And cell swelling is a real physiological effect. When you do a lot of high intensity work, your muscles become engorged with blood and metabolites, a bunch of other things. And studies have shown that it does have a hypertrophic effect. So it is a good thing. Cell swelling is a good thing. My problem isn't so much this looking for cell swelling, it's using it as an indicator, because he seems to relate it's a 1-for-1 thing. For example, if you don't have enough pump, you need to do more volume. And if you have a normal amount of pump, then that's a good amount of volume. And I'm not sure where he gets that correlation where, yes, cell swelling is good, but how do we know how much is good and if even more cell swelling means more work? There's a lack of studies to make that big of a jump, I think. So again, cell swelling is good. However, we can't say that more cell swelling is better. I would guess that there's probably a low threshold, that once that cell swelling is there, there's enough to do his job, and then that's that. Again, I don't know. He's using this as an indicator, which is a pretty big aspect of the methodology. It determines if you're going to do more pumps, if you're going to do more sets or not. I think that's going off a lot of theory and hypothesis. This all goes back to the fact that I question who could do 3 sets of 8 to 12 of different exercises and not have a good pump. We need to remember everyone's been chasing the pump forever. It's just now RP's trying to use it as an indicator of the quality of your sets. And again, I think the evidence is lacking to make it such a big part of your methodology. Going on the pump thing again, in one of his videos, he talks about the importance of working to failure. And one of his points was if you're working to failure, you're going to be getting a good pump. So it's from my point of view, I'm saying, well, are we training to failure? Are we trying to get a pump? I mean, training to failure has been one of the aspects of hypertrophy training forever. Basically, every single program is going to have you work to failure. That's kind of the point. So it seems like, again, it's this overcomplicating the process. We're adding new indicators when in reality we're just training the failure. But now we're using that pump aspect. Another thing with the cell pump and another indicator, performance. Another one of his videos when he's talking about RPF is he says if you improve on your lifts but you don't get a good pump, don't worry about it. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's always been kind of the indicator if a program is working. That is, are you getting better? Are you lifting more? Is the same weight getting easier? Are you doing more reps? Basically, is your performance improving? If your performance is improving, just keep doing what you're doing. If your performance becomes stagnant, then you need to change something. So, in Dr. Mike's own words, if your performance is improving, don't worry about your pump. So why are we even worrying about the pump to begin with? So I'd propose this question. Let's say you get a good pump, but you don't improve. Does that mean that was a success? Because that happens plenty of times. You get a good pump, it goes away. You don't see any growth. You don't see any improvements in your lift. So is that a successful lift session or not successful? Or the flip around. Let's say you don't get a pump, but your lifts get easier. You do more reps. Do you just still doing it, or do you add more volume just because you don't have that good pump? So again, it kind of mitigates the need to even worry about the pump. It's, again, overcomplicating. If you're getting better, continue doing what you're doing. If you're not getting better, then you change some things. And yet one more thing that I think mitigates the importance of cell swelling is, so another thing that kind of has to do with cell swelling is that volume has always been, king in hypertrophy work. You increase your volume, you increase hypertrophy. This has been shown time and time again. And there's one study I talked about, Brad Schoenfeld did, that he had a power lifter and a bodybuilder doing the same amount of volume, but the bodybuilder did 3x10, and the power lifter did 7x3, I believe. But it equaled out the same volume. And in my mind, I'm thinking that they would have different amounts of pump in those exercises, in that same volume. And I don't know, but I'm just kind of assuming different levels of pump, and yet they had the same hypertrophy, the same muscle growth. So again, it's volume, and there's plenty of studies that show that volume is king. And so if you're not getting a good pump and you're just adding volume, is it the pump that's increasing the hypertrophy, or is it the volume? And again, goes back to say the same time, it's overcomplicating. In my opinion, it's overcomplicating the process. One week you do 100 pounds, the next week you do 105 pounds, the next week you do 107.5 pounds. You just keep increasing your volume. Again, cell swelling does have a part to play. I just don't think that part is an indicator on how much more volume you should do. We can kind of have these same aspects with some of the other indicators like disruption, which is basically fatigue, drop in muscle strength, and one of the questions is like, how much disruption have you felt? And in my eyes, if you're doing 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps to failure, you should have a noticeable amount of disruption. I'm not sure how adding volume, more sets, is going to increase that disruption. Again, out of the 4 indicators, I think performance is really all you need. Is, are you getting better? If so, increase the load, do more weight, and if not, then you can change your volume, change your exercise or something like that. So the reason I'm talking about the cell swelling stuff so much is because, again, this is their methodology. This is what's selling the app, their unique methodology. So that begs the question, is it going to work? And yeah, it's going to work. It promotes progressive overload by adding sets, and it promotes working to failure or close to failure. And those are the 2 variables that you need for hypertrophy. So the question really isn't, is it going to work? The question is, is it really offering a groundbreaking methodology that's for a premium price? It's about $35 a month, or $199 for 6 months, or $299 for a year. Also figure in that it doesn't have any, it doesn't help with any type of personalized programs. It doesn't offer any pre-written programs. It doesn't have the widgets. You're solely buying this methodology that's heavily based on theory, in my opinion. One of those apps, one more premium app that I would suggest is Dr. Muscle. Dr. Muscle is also an AI-driven app. It's also created by PhD holders and experts in the field of exercise science, but it's in stark contrast with RPHypertrophy app. For one, anyone can take this app, and after the intake, a series of questions, it's going to give you an actual personalized program, and it's a real personalized program. It's not just random assortment of exercises. It's not pre-written. It's 100% personalized to your needs, to the way you answer the questions. Then it uses some special methods, but the methods that it uses have a lot more backing in science. For example, your RPE, rate of perceived exertion, which is similar to art, uses something called daily undulating periodization, or DUP, which is a way of altering your volume and your load to mitigate fatigue. It uses rest, pause, stop apps, which there's just a paper released that showed that was actually able to produce better results than traditional training, and that was only one study, but there's other studies that show it can be superior, especially for saving time. And then it adjusts your program as you move along. So it's not just one thing. It's not just something that you have to put in your own exercises. It's going to tell you what to do, and it's going to adjust and adapt as you grow. So in reality, you don't really need another app. It's called a trainer in the pocket, because it's really the closest thing I found that acts as an actual trainer. They have a 100% free trial. Go on. You don't need a credit card. You can just start using it for 2 weeks and then decide from there. So there's really no reason why not to. Especially if you are thinking by RP app, go check out Dr. Muscle first. It's totally free. See what it gives, see what it delivers, and then you make up your mind from there. Anyways, I know this is long, but I want to thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.